what do you call an anti-ED YouTube channel that is also anti-recovery? A food coma. That was an awful joke. Shalom, shalom. I'm happy to be back. Man, this is an exciting video. So I am going to basically recap right now. I did a video called Educating Shani Hater Doesn't Get Eugenia Cooney Commentary. Educating Shani was attacked by a small, tiny channel called Diet Cokehead. And Educating Shani did a video, well, her Instagram story, she posted like, who's this person, what the hell? And I did a video defending her, and then it got a fair amount of views, about 1,000 views. And the comments were really nice, and Educating Shani gave me a shout out. Thank you, Shani. Love you. So I looked into this channel farther. It turns out this channel is much more extensive than I thought. There is a lot of content, and this content, I say this with my incel YouTube channels I go over, it's a trip. This channel, Diet Cokehead, has been posting consistently a few times a week to a few times a month since 2018. So there are a lot of videos. Each one is usually about a minimum of 10 minutes. In the beginning, she doesn't even show her face. It's just like the shot is from the nose down, so it's like a Kate Yup kind of thing. But I watched them. I lost a lot of sleep over this. The main focus of her channel is centered around her eating disorder, mainly bulimia, with a little bit of anorexia thrown in. It kind of fluctuates. A lot of the videos are basically a food diary and a catalog of her anorexic and bulimic thoughts and her relationship to food, of which she is very candid about. Nothing is held back, no filter. And this is the point I want to make very clear. I think a lot of these videos are very good and very helpful. I think there needs to be more out there. I think we don't see this kind of honesty very often about how dark someone's thoughts get out of fear of repercussion, and it's great when someone can really just say that this is horrible, this is what I think, this is how horrible I can get. There's no sugarcoating that it's horrible. There is still so much about anorexia that's in the shadows, and Diet Cokehead does a great job of showing us why there's so much in the shadows, why it's so hard to be open and honest about this disease. The problem is, as you will see, her communication skills are not great, and she lashes out against the recovery community, sometimes for very good reason, and sometimes for very disingenuous reasons. And also, her message kind of gets overshadowed by her kookiness. It's like a Trisha Paytas situation. Even when she does say something good, it's like hard to catch onto it because it's buried under all these very bad stuff. I guess you could say her wisdom gets blindsided by her own toxic thoughts. But that's okay, because that's what I'm here for. Conveniently for me, and I guess the viewer, I'll be going over her videos mostly in chronological order. Maybe with the exception of some videos I'll talk about out of chronology, just maybe to further a point or provide something with context. A lot of the videos are very repetitive, but with every few videos, some new bit of information comes out, or some new opinion on eating disorders or her eating disorders, which I think is another piece to the puzzle. So in a way, this video I'm doing is kind of like the evolution of Diet Cokehead, because I love Smokey Glow's The Evolution Of series. The first video sets the tone for what you're gonna see, which is mainly contradictory opinions, of which she has many throughout many of her videos. I feel like when I do a lot of these channel analysis videos, always it's the first video that really sets the tone for what you're gonna see and consistent patterns and themes and habits throughout the rest of the channel. I guess the first video is always the most telling of the person. I think that's due to not being adjusted to talking in front of a camera and not really having your camera etiquette down. People are just the most raw and unfiltered and just don't know what's appropriate or how to say something in a way that's more communicable, so just whatever they think and just the craziest stuff will come out in that first video. It's just they're the most unrefined in the first video. I can relate because my early videos were massive diatribe. Oh, glad those are down. The first video is expressing sadness that Reddit took down the subreddit forum pro-ED. Yes, pro-ED, as in pro-eating disorders. So encouraging happy to have an eating disorder. And when I said a moment ago this video expresses very contradictory opinions, this is what I mean. In the video, she first admits that these kinds of forums can be dangerous because they attract creeps.
I understand, like, I don't know if it was, like, just the name or the nature of the subreddit, or that, like, I knew that, like, anytime that there's, like, some kind of my pro Anna or, like, pro ED or whatever, there are always these weird dudes that creep on the subreddits, and they're like, hey, I'll pay you to film you purging, or I'll...
But then she goes on to defend the forum's right to exist, or at least the benefits of it existing.
People on those forums were the only people that understood. We weren't giving eating disorders to people. People weren't, like, all of a sudden developing it because of these sites.
So from that, from her connection to the Pro ED Reddit forum, it seems she really does find more a sense of community and safety in people who are actively participating in having their eating disorders than people who have recovered from it, even if she admits that it's bad for her and she doesn't want it. And I should just say now that in many of her videos throughout her entire channel, she makes the point that she is not pro-ED in saying that she is happy to have an eating disorder, that she likes being this way. Her point is that that's just how she is and she doesn't think she can be cured. So she just is trying to live with it as best she can. Because in a lot of her videos she's like, but I can remain healthy this way, I still am healthy this way, I have it, but it's never gonna really go away. Okay, back to talking about the canceled pro-ED Reddit forum. She definitely comes off that she finds she can be more open about herself with people who are still actively participating or trying to further their eating disorders than people who recovered. And this does make sense because it does feel like group therapy. The problem is there is no therapist who's moderating to make sure there is no encouragement. She claims there isn't, but we're gonna talk about that. I can definitely believe that with people who have a problem, talking to people who have recovered can be scary because it can come off as a very I pity the fool, a very holier than thou, that the person who recovered is above you and you're below, and you have to feeling of like kissing their shoe in order to get wisdom or get better. But if it's someone just as messed up as you, there is no position someone else can take to judge you from a higher moral ground. So now let's go into her experience interacting with other people online who have eating disorders also.
Things because they are fucking valuable research tools. There were threads on there that, like, we talked about our habits. There were threads that where people asked, like, what was your mom like? Where people asked what's your family like? Or people asked, do you do this or do you do...
That statement is interesting because I think she was trying to get across that you can get a deeper understanding of your eating disorder if you are talking to someone who also has the exact same issues as you do, because you're also getting to know them as people as well, and other details of their life outside of it. So you know that it's not a person who's defined by their eating disorder, it's just a person who happens to have it like you do. And if you see someone like that, then you can better feel like you're not just someone who is completely consumed by this as well, and you can live with it and also just try to manage it without it consuming your life. And that's great. But the problem is that's still a breeding ground for toxicity to take over without a proper moderator, and any Reddit forum that's pro-ED I doubt has a proper moderator. Maybe she herself didn't feel encouraged to have an eating disorder from talking to other people on that forum pro-ED, but again, anything with the title pro-ED, that poses a huge threat. For example, I do a lot of videos on incels. I could have learned a lot more if the incel Reddit forum had stayed up. My videos could have been much more informative. But it had to go because it was radicalizing and spreading very toxic views and encouraging people who already had toxic views to go ahead and further push them, especially on young impressionable boys who are brainwashed and already very frustrated with women. And that Reddit forum saying go ahead and be more frustrated with women and go ahead and hate women. Diet Cokehead does have a lot of great videos on representation of eating disorders in media and even documentaries, and how they're really bad and fail the ED community. And a good point she makes is, you know, people say, oh, this glamorizes eating disorders, this glamorizes thinness and eating disorders. And it's not really about glamorizing eating disorders. It's about getting the profile of someone who has it right. If the majority of her videos stuck to these topics, it would be a much better channel. Then again, who am I to say what someone can and cannot post? At this point in the channel, which we're still very early in it, she's nowhere near attacking people like Of Herbs and Altars and Educating Shani and other anti-Eugenia Cooney channels. It's just funny that she will go on to attack people like Educating Shani when she says something like this.
Beforehand, I had 760 calories, and I had 760 calories, and I didn't eat anything, and the very next day I snapped and ate all the leftovers that everybody left. Like, all of our friends are fucking amazing cooks that bring a shit ton of amazing food.
I guess she had short-term memory loss when she made that Educating Shani video. She actually made a few by now. I personally think it's very brave of her to share something like that, and I would normally applaud it if she wasn't being a hypocrite and later spewing Educating Shani for triggering people when this can be very triggering. She says Educating Shani is a bad influence, yet what's this? What is it what we just saw? I mean, there's many different kinds of influences, and some are not good for some and some are good for others. And she is just a part of those many different influences. I'll acknowledge that she's very knowledgeable about eating disorders, but also when it comes to other people talking about them, she has this very been there, done that attitude that's really condescending.
Gotta, like, flush that shit out like 20 times before you make any kind of progress or any kind of maintenance can be done.
I'm not trying to discourage anyone from being graphic. I think you need to be a little bit morbid to get across the realities of having this disorder, so people can properly know the signs and parameters of the problem. She says in quite a few videos she thinks all eating disorders are basically the same. I'm not sure if she means same medical issues or just same psychological issues. Okay, I won't argue about that, but not all people are the same. And everyone's genuine willingness to recover can vary heavily. Her willingness to recover is pretty much non-existent. She says because it's impossible. I'm not going to debate that. But why she's willing to so much dismiss other people's views and experiences on eating disorders, or why she will eventually go on to, is hinted in this clip, which is very long, so please bear with me on it. I'm sorry.
I don't advocate this, but I mean, like, we're all doing it, you know? We're all going through this. There are other people who don't want recovery. And I mean, like, it's not that I want to teach people how to have an eating disorder. It's just like, if we're already doing this already, why not learn recipes that make our experience a lot less fucking miserable? Because, like, it's miserable enough as is.
It's very clear that she knows she has a problem, but she's rejecting help because she enjoys too much being part of the ED community, and a part of her does enjoy her eating disorder a little too much as well, something she isn't really fighting. She acts like it's actually the pro-ED community that's helping her more than the recovery community, and makes having an eating disorder less deadly. It's a little bit like passing fresh needles around to drug addicts to ensure they don't spread any more diseases like HIV. And yes, you can't stop an eating disorder like anorexia or bulimia right away, and a group that doesn't help you manage your drug addiction or whatever issue you have safely does have some benefit, but that's not the final step in helping you. And that's really not what Diet Cokehead is doing. She says nothing about how these groups help you recover for the people that want to. She pretends like the encouragement to recover or get better is implied in these groups. No, they're not. You're not fooling anyone. And this clip proves she does indeed like being around toxic people, and looks for excuses to stay around them.
Some people were at a barbecue at our house, and they started talking about laxatives, and they were like, oh, yeah, I put a bunch of laxatives in this lady's coffee, and we didn't have class because like an hour later she's shitting herself, ha ha ha. There's so many things that I wanted to say. There's so many, like, I had so much information on this subject that I could...
And that's the problem with a lot of her videos. Well, the later ones when she goes directly after the recovery community. She makes up these petty criticisms of Eugenia Cooney critics because she says it's not helping. It really comes off as it's not the brand of recovery that she personally likes. And really, the attitude of, oh, it's just not the proper kind of recovery methods that people with eating disorders need, even that's just really a cover motive for the fact that she doesn't like to see anti-Eugenia Cooney content because she herself can't admit that she doesn't want to recover and just acts like, oh, I'm stuck with this forever. It's just how it is. It is what it is. So just to go over what I just said, she's acting like these other people who are trying to encourage recovery, YouTube channels or forums or whatever, they're bad, and she's making up these dumb criticisms when in reality she just doesn't like their brand of recovery, and she doesn't like their brand of recovery because she herself is struggling with her relationship to recovery, which she doesn't really say, at least not as explicitly. So she kind of just takes it out on the recovery community. Since Eugenia Cooney's name is very hot, YouTube is gonna throw criticisms of the influencer you like in your face, whether you like it or not. That's why people who are pro-ED use more intimate platforms like private Instagram groups or private forums or whatever, because they're trying to shield out any dangerous influences that would tell them, no, this isn't right, you should recover. And of course YouTube with its algorithm is gonna splash a lot of anti-Eugenia Cooney videos based on her name. That's how YouTube works.
I want to like build a community. I want us to like have like a place where we can like,
It's interesting because that video kind of shows she does have some self-awareness. She does want a community that's going to help her. The problem is her version of help is very weak because she can't admit it's her eating disorder that's drawing her to be around toxic people. She just thinks, that's just who I am. The eating disorder is just who I am. It doesn't have this hold over my hate for them, for other people who are so anti-Eugenia Cooney or pro-recovery.
Was supposed to be. My pro-Anna kind of got like uncomfortable sometimes because there's so many like little girls there. And I mean, you can kind of tell when somebody's just like experimenting and testing the waters with it. But the thing, and like people think that this shit's like contagious or whatever, or that they're just gonna go like we're gonna give somebody an eating disorder. But I don't think that you can do that. I
see how she has such nostalgia for a very toxic group? Yeah, she doesn't admit the website My Pro Anna, a website that also talks about Eugenia Cooney a lot, just to be very clear, is bad, but she's also defending what she likes about it, because nobody there gave her the disorder. I think she needs to learn the difference between the word giving and enablement. And more importantly, she needs to learn the similarities between those two words. In a video called The Real Societal Impact on Eating Disorders, she does start to talk about Eugenia Cooney without saying her name. Like Mr. Business Suits, you definitely can tell she has a relationship with Eugenia Cooney or sees a lot of herself in Eugenia Cooney. Very much so, it's apparent she really appreciates seeing someone who's very wrecked still living their life, and I think gravitates towards someone like Eugenia Cooney because she's not gonna get like the sympathetic or judgmental spiel from her.
And I cannot fucking fathom. Like, I see food, I want food. Like, I know that fucking tastes great. I have no impulse control. I will think and obsess about food way too much.
So there was a little view into her past and kind of again, how much her eating disorder has consumed her mind, and she does admit this and does try to combat it, but again, she's fighting it without actually trying to expel it.
I believe in every eating disordered person's, in our heart of hearts, we want that underweight, legit, anorexic diagnosis, which is really hard. Even whenever you have an eating disorder, that's really hard to get.
I don't know why she thinks that. Well, I have my guesses. It seems she says she wants all eating disorders to be the same, I guess because she wants to be able to relate to other people more, so she feels she has more of a support network that aren't people who recovered. This woman is very clearly not good at organizing her thoughts, and that's either intentional or it's a result of her eating disorder or something else, I'm not really sure. Either way, she's drawn to toxic groups and tries to pass them off as helpful because they don't require her to challenge herself. She uses these people to help her believe that, you know, you either get better or worse not by effort or just by evolving naturally, which I guess is kind of a crappy excuse to just forego anything that you really need to get better on, but can't for whatever reason.
You can't just, if somebody's broken, or if somebody's big, or if somebody cuts themselves, if somebody starves themselves, if somebody binges and purges, like, they're not gonna promote, like, they're not gonna turn they're not promoting anything. Like, nobody...
I think that's very interesting, and she restates that point in many other videos. And I think that's so she can feel less guilty about not putting any effort into fixing her problem that she admits she has. And she's using that excuse of, oh, I'm not hurting anyone. You may not be hurting anyone, but you are complicit unintentionally in possibly making someone worse. Especially if you're giving other people who have this issue a pass on, oh, you know, you don't have to improve, that's just how you are, all eating disorders are the same, remember that. Or are fostering communities where eating disorders can thrive, or encouraging those communities to exist without any proper moderation from someone who can step in and say, no, this is getting toxic. And her we're just existing spiel is pretty much just a please don't uncover really how toxic my secret world of pro-eating disorder community is. She's not committing a crime, but it is just very disingenuous. The most disingenuous is Eugenia Cooney herself, who backstabbed her entire fan base. I think Eugenia Cooney's existence now serves as kind of an imaginary friend to many people who are struggling to battle their eating disorders, or their own demons, or something else. We've all had those bad friends that stop us from getting better when we're depressed or reaching our goals, or say, you know, you're fine, or just drag us down. They don't say outright you shouldn't improve, but they inspire the worst of you to come out.
But then, like, you don't know. Like, how do you fucking know how to eat normally? Like, I've tried, like, looking at what I eat in a days, or at, like, pictures of normal meals and stuff, but then that just stressed me out because...
She's subconsciously confusing herself to what is normal eating, and then what is unhealthy eating, so she can claim ignorance to when the disease is taking over. That way her eating disorder can continue to thrive, even though she claims she's trying to manage it. And this is also an excuse to ignore the recovery community by saying, you know, from them, they're not helping her see what normal eating and what unhealthy eating is. Oh, no.
If you have an ED, you're gonna find stuff that, like, triggers you. And you're gonna do it, like, intentionally.
She looks for ways to act as if the eating disorder community cannot be influencing or influenced. As if eating disorders are all within control of everyone who's within the pro-Ana community. It just boils down to the I can stop anytime if I want to excuse. She's trying to downplay the hard work it takes to recover. Because, you know, she's saying, no need to leave the ED community because, you know, eating disorders are not that easily influenced anyway, so you don't need to leave. So, you know, she can stay friends with these people and still work on herself, theoretically. Triggers are more common than we think. People may want to get better, but want isn't the same as having the willpower. And she's acting like they are one and the same. In fact, in that same video, I'm not gonna insert the clips because it's just way too long, she talks about eating disorder sites not wanting to be responsible for the death of anyone. So they minimize the triggers by banning specific food measurement terms or weight goal terms, basically saying no specific numbers on anything. So Diet Cokehead, under that new rule, because of that new rule from that website, you know, because she still wanted to look for triggers or inspiration, she went to recovery websites and looked at their signs for eating disorders and just reverse engineered the symptoms to continue to give herself worse eating disorder habits. And her point in that is, well, you can get eating disorder inspiration from anywhere, so why are these websites banning stuff? Because it doesn't matter. You might as well just keep it there where you can manage it better, because if you ban specific weight goal words or specific food measurement words, I could just get it from somewhere else and everything. Right there, that's proof. Her problem is much worse than she's willing to admit. Yes, she's not underweight and she binges and purges, but she doesn't have control over herself like she's trying to come off as. If her yearning to have an eating disorder or participate in bad eating habits are so bad that once her beloved pro-Ana website forum bans specific numbers and everything, she has to go to recovery websites and find a way to use their coded language to get advice on how to actually make it worse, when the point of those websites is how to get better. Her attitude is like, oh, well, you know, anyone can just go anywhere and get inspiration or finspiration to make your anorexia or bulimia worse, so why are the pro-ED websites banning specific terms to be to not be held responsible? No, honey, well, I'm sure there are other people, but that's you. Your eating disorder is so bad, you feel compelled to go find inspiration to further your eating disorder in other weirder places. Honey, it has more of a hold over you and you're not managing it, and you didn't get any inspiration managing it from that Pro-Ana website. I'm sorry. In this same video, she also expresses issues with pro-recovery YouTube channels because they didn't help her. She claims that she, at one point when she was trying to get better, was a lot like them, but she relapsed, so she doesn't really believe that they're actually better. Basically, she implies those YouTubers are lying about their recovery. I guarantee there's nobody who went to lengths to go get pro-Ana information from a recovery anorexic website because the pro-Ana website banned specific triggers like mentioning specific food amounts.
Maintain to like once or twice a week, and I don't know, I just don't feel like it can be that bad for you. I mean, like, I've been doing this for 15 years at varying levels of severity, and it's never been, I've never had any health consequences. I'm not saying that you won't, I'm just saying that I haven't. And like, I mean, there are pregnant women that like throw up every day and they turn out okay. You know, they do it every day for like 9 months and then they turn out alright.
Nothing much to say about this, except for in that clip, she's being, pun intended, diet Eugenia Cooney.
I can just like experiment with other diets, experiment with other calorie restrictions, experiment with altering days of calories or whatever, and just like maintain like some kind of level of control, and like as long as my body looks healthy and everybody's like happy.
She was coaching herself on how to maintain her eating disorder, and yet being part of these pro-Ana groups isn't bad for her, apparently. They have nothing to do with it. Oh no. It's all purely her choice. Well, yes, it is all her choice. Her attitude and her choice of managing her eating disorder. But she's also choosing to kill the side of herself that doesn't want this. And of course, that choice means enlisting pro-Ana groups to drown out those recovery thoughts. Of course, she's not outright saying that. I appreciate how candid her eating disorder thoughts are, anorexic and bulimic, and her criticisms on the recovery community, for, well, some of them at least. She has some real reasons to be upset with the recovery community, but like many people with eating disorders, she turns her anger on other people in the world on herself. I think this kind of behavior is more common with mentally ill people than we give credit for. Denial has a lot of time to develop, and I will say that her denial has become more sophisticated than Eugenia's.
Okay. So anyway, I am a hot fucking mess. I have been restricting really good since Thursday, over the weekend. I got down to my new lowest weight of 113, and then since yesterday I've been binging and purging like fucking crazy, but such is life. I've also been like taking a whole bunch of laxatives on top of that, and I don't know why that has come into play. I mean, I thought that I had that under control.
This is bad. She knows she's putting herself at risk of putting herself in critical condition because she is aware she has a problem. She thinks that awareness of her problem can act as like this red alarm when she gets to like a critical point. And maybe that awareness of her eating disorder and her problem can be the red alarm for it's really bad, you need to do something about this to get better. But red alarms don't stop someone, they don't. Okay, so I'd like to take a quick detour here because I want to show something else besides Diet Cokehead. It is related though. So Diet Cokehead is not afraid to talk about her admiration for Eugenia Cooney, her connection to the ET community, and I think that is brave. I think there are a lot of, like Mr. Business Suits, there's a lot of Eugenia Cooney fans out there who are afraid to out themselves because of harsh judgment. They know they have a problem and they don't need other people to just shame them for it, which I think is interesting. So they're kind of scattered all over the internet, and I want to show just one part, area where I found a lot of fans. For anyone who doesn't know the site Whisper, it's a little bit like a Instagram meets Reddit, I guess. It's an anonymous confession website where you can have like threads and confess. You have to like put words on a picture to post something, like a meme kind of, so people can just anonymous confessions, and like the whole point's supposed to be like dark and like artistic because like you overlay your words, writing with like a picture kind of thing. So I don't know if it was big a few years ago. I guess it's still used today. There's a lot of anonymous confessions of opinions on Eugenia Cooney. I'm gonna show you some. What are your guys' thoughts on Eugenia Cooney? If you look at the right one, the top right, it says, she's what I'm aiming for. Same thread, what are your thoughts on Eugenia Cooney? Someone says, she's so fucking hot. Top left. I have a massive crush on Eugenia Cooney and I feel guilty. I honestly actually think Eugenia Cooney is pretty with body and face-wise. Then someone on the top left wrote, I'd hit it. And then someone wrote Roger Roger, and then the bottom response post is like, yikes, like what's wrong with you people? Everything about Eugenia Cooney is so beautiful. Someone wrote, she's a real life Tim Burton character. And you can see like other people's opinions. Someone else posted, what are your thoughts on Eugenia Cooney? I wish I was skinny as her. I wish I looked like her, to be honest. I know I'll get a lot of hate for this, but Eugenia Cooney is stunning. Is it bad I want to be skinny? I am skinny, but I desire to be sickly skinny, almost like Eugenia Cooney. And someone wrote, yes, it's bad, and someone wrote, don't hurt yourself. I wish I knew what Eugenia Cooney's diet is. It looks like she's losing weight again. So, you see a lot of, it's very difficult for people to get talk openly about their opinions on anorexia and Eugenia Cooney, that it has to be like on this anonymous forum where you can't get a profile of the kind of person and who they are and their background and why they like someone so much. It has to be kept these very short, condensed, clipped thoughts on a forum that just is like very, all like Twitter, I guess, very like, you don't have much of a platform to say much. And my thing is, I see why it's like this, because where is the line between where people can be open about their thoughts, good or bad, and then also accidentally breeding toxicity where someone then is inspired to get worse by the community they're in? That's a very thin line, and honestly, I don't really know where that line is drawn. Because these people don't want to be lectured by someone who's saying, you have to recover, that's wrong, or be harshly judged at all. In fact, there's one video where Diet Coke Head does talk about, it's hard to talk to people about this issue because they're gonna say you have to recover, you have to fix this, and using the term fix it is like you did something wrong. This eating disorder is all your fault and you need to own up to it as if you disappointed yourself and other people. I mean, yeah, like a group therapy or a psychiatrist can say no judgment, but the truth is, if you say, I want to be so thin I want to die, that psychiatrist very well could be obligated to 5150 you. Again, I don't have the answer on where where the line is drawn or how to handle this, but I will say this. I think the problem is when somebody says something that's like what you just saw on those whisper forums, people are quick to say, okay, this is what it means. This is what's really going on with you. This is the problem and everything. And nobody asks you, what do you think this means? Like, well, a good psychiatrist would. A good psychiatrist say, what do you think this means? What do you get out of this when you say something like that? And I think the important thing is to let people explore their thoughts more deeply without feeling that they have to set a goal for themselves to get better at this time, or that immediately, if they're exploring it, they have to do it for the sake of, I need to get better by the end of this session, by the end of by this period, or that the end goal of exploring is to improve by this much mentally. Because I've had psychiatrists that honestly, by just saying one thing, they thought they know me so well, and they like, oh, well, that's what this issue, well, you said this, that's what, it links to this issue. And others, the better ones, will be like, okay, you've said this now, you've said like a thought you've been holding back, and what do you think about that? What do you think that means in relation to the rest of you, and to other likewise issues, or the emotional issues those kinds of thoughts have been causing? What do you think the bigger picture is? Which I think is very important to ask. But nobody gets a chance to do that, and Whisper doesn't give you a chance to do that. And no wonder these kinds of thoughts are on Whisper, a very condensed platform where the point is just to say something shocking in a confession, not to go deeper and say, well, this is why this confession is happening. Okay, I'm really happy about this segment because now we're gonna dive into Diet Coke Head's relationship with the recovery community. I've talked about it before, but now we're really going into it about really how she does not like it and why she doesn't like it. and just her very strained view. So actually this next clip is actually picking up from the last video. It's the same video.
But then, like, you have, like, this weird breed of recovery YouTubers that, like, just talk about, like, every single fucking video is, like, about how horrible it is to have an eating disorder. And I think it's worse than Eugenia Cooney. I think it's worse than, the other bad stuff on there that kind of fuel eating disorders. I mean, okay, I don't know how many of us are really like this, but I have a feeling that it's probably most of us that feel this way, but I don't know if everyone agrees with me on this, or if, like, I'm, like, the odd one out or something, but, like, I'm not scared of the health risks. I never have been. In a weird way, if this were to make me sick, like, I don't want to be in the hospital.
She seems to be triggered by the fact that other people are afraid of their eating disorders enough to change it. It's as if she's afraid that it's possible for someone to turn themselves around out of fear of becoming someone like her.
I know that I do have to take measures to look after my health so that that doesn't happen, but I do get jealous whenever people come up on YouTube and start bragging about how sick they were, and I feel like that's what they're doing.
I mean, in this clip, you can hear her bitterness towards recovered people or people in recovery. Again, what gives her the authority to say that? She just acts like recovery channels are coming from a place of holier than thou, I know better than you need to follow me like Jesus. Which maybe some are, but she's also projecting on them. In fact, in that very same video, she uses a word that's very telling.
And, like, I feel like I'm not entitled to getting better because I haven't been sick.
The word entitled is very interesting. So people who recovered are entitled, and again, she doesn't see this. She does think she genuinely believes people who recovered are entitled, but making out the recovery community to be entitled, as if entitlement is how they recovered, is a tactic that her eating disorder is feeding her. Oh god, pun wasn't intended there. She knows she has sick thoughts, but Diet Cokehead can't separate which thoughts are the sick thoughts and which thoughts are the normal thoughts. In a video called Health Nazis, she talks about how people who want to help other people with eating disorders can come off as hostile and end up doing worse. I'm sure that is correct, but she also talks about how people who want to help act like they're brainwashed and in a cult. And it's in this video that she seems to reveal what she relates to about Eugenia Cooney the most. The alarmist people telling Eugenia Cooney she's dying. She has the same resentment to the alarmist people trying to help Eugenia Cooney and says it's doing worse. Which, yeah, maybe. Diet Cokehead likes to get the point across that Eugenia Cooney can live her life with this sickness and be happy with it, and if she wants to, let her. But here's the problem what Diet Cokehead does not see. No one is saying you can't live with an illness and be happy. No one is saying that to Eugenia Cooney, that she can't live with being sick and also a happy life. The criticism is Eugenia Cooney masquerading as if nothing is wrong. It makes me think Diet Cokehead is projecting on Eugenia Cooney's fans the fact that she herself can't admit that she's not as in control of her problem as she wants to think. Because she isn't doing a great job of balancing living well and her eating disorder. And she's said this in videos, oh, I binged and purged, how it gets her down. I think she likes to beat down Eugenia Cooney critics so she herself can have this moral high ground so she can feel better about her mess of a life, honestly.
And some people don't want to. Some people aren't in a place in their lives where that seems feasible, and that just needs to be, like, it's not my problem that some people can't accept.
Do you see the projection there also? Saying, oh, but she's talking about other people, but this is really about her. She's not able to set out what she's intending to do, which is live with her eating disorder and live somewhat well. And she's admitted that it's been hard to do. And saying, oh, you know, some people out there just aren't able to accomplish their goals. Sounds pretty familiar. She complains in that video, many people who talk about people with eating disorders dehumanize them, either intentionally or accidentally, which, yeah, I do think is true. But she's not fooling anyone pretending like it's her mission to humanize people with eating disorders also. I mean, she does do that a little bit, but representing people with eating disorders isn't the same as justification. And honestly, even though she says she's trying to represent or talk and be candid, she is also trying to justify behavior by saying, well, you know, some people just can't set out what they want to do, like that previous clip you saw. Okay, so now I'd like to take another little detour to something else that's related. I don't typically do this. In my last video about educating Shani and Diet Cokehead about that drama, I engaged in a comment battle. I don't typically fight with people in the comments. I only did this because I was trying to pick the brain and get someone to just explain more in their thoughts. So I did engage in a little comment debate, but I did it for a good purpose. And this is all about the difference between defending and justifying and trying to help, and kind of where the line is. It's very blurred. I'll just go into it here. So basically in that last video, this person commented, Ever17 said, Eugenia Cooney is not in denial. She doesn't want to talk about it, and she doesn't have to. People's choices are their own fault. Which, yeah, it's true. So I wrote back, what do you call admitting it, then now saying you don't? She says, I call it a relapse, which happens a lot of people with ED. She's not in any state of talking a bunch of people online in front of the world who aren't. Basically, she didn't, you get the point what she's trying to say. I wrote, but she wants to talk to those people online. And relapse is when you develop the disorder again. She's saying she never had it and doesn't have it now. Ever17 wrote, so you can talk to people and only tell them what you're comfortable with. Yeah, well, if people stop asking stupid questions, you'll stop getting stupid answers. Then I said, can we ask people to be accountable? Like making a viral documentary, then pissing on it without owning up to what she said? And, well, the conversation continued, but this last thing is what I was trying to get, what I'm trying to get her to say. Or him, I think it's a her, but, or this person, sorry. Accountability for mental illness is not a thing. It's not someone's fault they have a mental illness. That's very telling, and again, I think speaks a lot to Eugenia Cooney fans, and also people like Diet Cokehead. I mean, no, it's not your fault you have a mental illness, but that doesn't release you from having to be responsible for it, of course. So, but to her, it's not your fault you had the mental illness, so why should you be responsible for it? And look, wouldn't it be great, like, if, you know, when something bad happens to someone and they develop an issue from it, say alcoholism, and of course it's not their fault they became alcoholics. And it would be nice to say, well, it's not my fault that I became this way, so I shouldn't have to get better. It's not my responsibility or moral obligation to get better. I can see that kind of thinking, absolutely. In a perfect world where we could have anything we want, or where nothing bad could happen to us and there'd be really no consequence, or we could control consequences better, yeah, you know, why should you have to get better? It's not your fault and everything. So why? But the thing is, we do have a responsibility to manage ourselves to be healthy, even if something really horrible happened that prevented that, of course. I mean, that's kind of the difference between personal accountability, justice, and being able, and responsibility. And I get it. I get, you know, a lot of people really do believe that, you know, well, it's not my fault I'm this way, so why should I have to change at all? But the thing is, you're doing toxic things, and it's also not other people's fault. The thing is, mental illnesses affect more than just yourself. They do affect society. And the problem is, if you're gonna let it go unchecked, it's gonna cause damage in society, which isn't other people's fault as well, so why are you letting it leak to other people? I mean, you have to be held accountable for that, other than other people could say, hey, you know, I didn't ask for this, I didn't ask to be in your toxic presence, I didn't ask for you to be so toxic to me, so you know what, get away from me, or they have a right to do something horrible to you as well if that's how you're gonna be. Basically, to say I don't have to be responsible for my mental illness is like saying It's fine for me to do bad things to other people because that's just how I am. I can't stop it. It's not my fault I became this way. But that's just gonna come back to bite you in the ass. And no, Eugenia Cooney's not necessarily doing directly bad things to other people, but she has hurt a lot of people by now. And it's that hurt that not owning up to, honestly, is a big moral issue. I get there's more factors at play that are not able to have her own up to it, like her family, but my issue is this relapse really is just gonna inspire a lot of people who are struggling to say, well, recovery's impossible, like how Diet Coke Head says. Oh well, no point in me getting better.
Do you wear a diaper? No, because I don't like them to fit us. Got like 3 pair of pants in my car.
Now we're exploring Diet Coke Head's eating disorder and the identity of how her regular identity and her eating disorder identity have kind of become one and the same, whether she wants to admit it or not.
I am in such hell, and I don't know how to talk about it. I don't know how to tell anybody, and I feel like I've dug a hole that I can't get out of. Can you please just, like, it's like you're in a hole and you're reaching for everybody's hands, but you're scared to ask for them at the same time. I don't really think that anybody ever covers, like, how much we love our disorders, because I fucking love mine. Like, it's weird. It's like I beg it not to leave me. It's like I'm terrified of this thing leaving me. It feels like there's a monster lurking around all the time too, and everything feels like a catastrophe, but then, like, if you count your calories right, then, like, everything's fine.
I think that's the closest to Eugenia Cooney's mind we can get. I think from that rant we can see the real experience of having an eating disorder. From that rant, it also seems she's very upset at the recovery community, and that people who want to help just are not sympathetic enough to her love of her eating disorder. It seems that Diet Coke Head has a problem with a lot of people thinking that an eating disorder is kind of like a sadomasochistic thing, a Marquise de Sade-like thing. People think that it's the pain of starving that anorexics love. It's not. It's in spite of the pain. It's closer to an abusive romantic relationship, like how people who put up with an abusive partner do it because they do it to stick out for the good parts, or they put up with the abuse to stick out for the romance.
Whenever I see an anorexic laying in a hospital bed, I'm jealous of her willpower.
So that shows it's not just about control. I mean, control is a part of it, but it's not the end of the story. Control is the first building block into building the identity you want. An anorexic identity, of course, or the identity that centers around being super thin. And willpower is the second part of it, or at least the component to the control. Also, it's very clear that from that, being anorexic is about having an identity that the rest of the world cannot relate to. She admires the accomplishment of being as inhuman as possible, even though she admits it's killing her. So why does someone want to be inhuman? Well, that answer is different for everyone.
I don't know what her issue was. Like, I know that she had a laxative habit. I don't know the extent of her eating disorder. Like, I know that she was crazy obsessed about her weight. She was crazy obsessed about my weight. Because whenever I was 9, I was a fat fucking little kid. I was just like a little chub monster. And, I was getting really badly bullied in school too, and my mom thought me losing weight would be like the solution to all of my problems. And
that clip, she was talking about her mother, and from that I think it's clear a lot of people think, or like to believe, that one little thing is going to solve all your problems, like putting your eggs in one basket, and eating disorders are about solving problems that can't be talked about. It's like deregulating environmental laws, then the environment goes to crap, so you want to prove that, oh, no, it's actually working, so you drink poison water. And keep drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking.
Look at Eugenia Cooney, and I mean, you know, she just feels like people don't fucking care about her. She, like, all the people in the comments saying, oh my god, you look so skinny, oh my god, you poor thing, like, that's the only validation she gets, and I mean, like, you can't.
I like how she used the word validation because there's positive and negative validation. And from that you can see Eugenia Cooney feeds off the negative validation because she's a person that knows she's fallen in love with something dangerous but can't be open about it. And a lot of the denial in a way, is trolling her audience. So her audience can come off as stupid, and she feels smarter about some issue, so she feels less guilty about having fallen in love with an image of herself that is very dangerous.
I hate how much I love food. I'm disgusted with how much I love food.
It seems her eating disorder is trying to train her brain to not love something that she naturally should want to. It seems that when it comes to eating disorders like hers, training her brain not to love something that the brain naturally should, it's like training your brain just not to love, period, as a way to just learn how to properly block emotions.
Like an anorexic buddy that would like take pity on me and tell me to enjoy the hunger or something, but I've never really reached that nirvana. I've never really been able to just like appreciate the hunger, and I keep
And this one, okay, I know the issue with the eating disorder community, or the perception of the eating disorder community, is that they come off as sadomasochistic when they're not masochists. Well, there are some exceptions, because this is a little masochistic. In a video called Another Take on Amberlynn and Eugenia, she talks about how a lot of help comes off as bullying. I think the term she's looking for is concern trolling. And she's right, concern trolling doesn't help. But let's be clear, she's also quick to write off as any kind of help as concern trolling. I do admit there can be a thin line between the two, and I think what draws that line is having a relationship with the person who you're trying to bring this issue or address the issue to. Like, for example, a recent scandal is Hailey Pham. She had a very close she's a lifestyle vlogger, so you know, that kind of YouTube genre really is a very close relationship with your audience. And of course she got married in secret during COVID and wasn't talking about it, and her subscribers were all commenting like, what the fuck, what, confess to it. Finally she and her husband did confess to it because of the relationship to her fans and her fans' intense relationship to her. And admittedly, someone like Eugenia Cooney, who, well, theoretically is a like fashion hall cosplay vlogger and gaming Twitch streamer, her kind of YouTube social media brand never was built on a close relationship. But in reality, we all know, Eugenia Cooney's eating disorder is the relationship to her audience. And there really isn't any other. I mean, she encourages this relationship with the body checking and the racy flashing video and all that other gross stuff. Eugenia Cooney doesn't know a relationship any other than anything else but her eating disorder. So it's like Eugenia Cooney can't recognize genuine concern. Any concern for her is just strengthening that relationship, of which the medium of that relationship is her eating disorder, of which she seems to want that to be the only connection to anybody. In a video called I Fucking Know I Look Healthy, she talks about how she hates being called looking healthy. And I think this is a key into why Eugenia Cooney relapsed. Eugenia admitted to an eating disorder, but she didn't admit what gave her the eating disorder, or if she still had those feelings. All we got really was a chronicle of her time in rehab. In this video, this is also where Diet Cokehead starts to take jabs at educating Shani and people like her. And it kind of slowly escalates till that drama video I did. In Diet Cokehead's many videos about documenting about her food life, her food journal, and binging and purging, and bulimic and anorexic thoughts, you see she's just trying to learn to live with it. It's a very ignore the problem and it'll hopefully go away one day kind of mentality. She's trying to teach herself how to incorporate bad eating habits into her daily life so they don't infringe on her too much. And eventually she won't even have to think about it. In a video called Mono E Mono, she talks about something called a mono diet, which from what I looked up is like crash dieting. I'm not sure really what it is. Basically the video is about how to maintain your life with an eating disorder and food, so the thought of food doesn't get you down or make you feel bad while still maintaining unhealthy eating habits. That's the thing. Diet Cokehead doesn't really care about finding the answer to actually improving her dietary situation. She doesn't address the paradoxes she poses of wanting to live a life where her eating disorder and her brain isn't constantly thinking about food, but still maintain bad eating habits, which of course is gonna still cause those bad thoughts, or at least further them. I will say there is a very weird comfort in having a lot of paradoxes or oxymorons or whatever you want to call them. I guess having those very contradictory kind of habits and lifestyle does make you feel like you get this kind of best of both worlds situation, and feeling like you are living the best in like both two opposite worlds that can be comforting if you feel very lost with yourself. Now we get to July 2019, when the Eugenia Cooney documentary comes out. Surprisingly, I like her take on this. She very quickly calls out how the documentary is bad, and how it's not authentic, you don't learn anything, it was just to make Shane look better. She criticizes the bad formatting, lack of information, says there's no evidence Eugenia Cooney's gonna get better, and we have no way of knowing that. I was like, wow, speak your truth, girl. And in talking about that documentary, she exposes her real issue with recovery channels, or the recovery community. Since they can't promise they're gonna get better, looking up to them is dangerous because it can risk disappointment if they relapse. And that relapse can be triggering and make it worse for their audience on accident. And yes, that is a risk, but that's just part of the recovery process. And some people need that to be told that harsh reality that yes, you can relapse, it can happen, and if it does, you know, there's someone else to go on that journey of dealing with that relapse as well. But yes, it can be triggering because if someone you follow relapses, you can then say, okay, well, you know, no point in me going on, I'm gonna relapse as well. That is a risk, and I admit that. But in reality, look, no one can promise anything. Like, keep in mind, these recovery channels aren't claiming to, you know, have the answer, or yes, I promise I'm gonna get better so you can get better 100%. It's a journey. If someone relapses and you feel disappointed in that person, okay, fine, then find someone else. No one can promise anything, to be very clear. And if maybe you don't have the heart to be able to be inspired by a recovery channel on the chance that that person could relapse and disappoint you and then ruin your mental health, then fine, don't watch that channel. Like, that's understandable.
It's way less scary to like live in a place where everything is a disaster than it is to live in a place where everything is okay, but you're scared that it won't be one day, or you're scared that it won't be any second now. It's scared to trust yourself enough. It's scary to trust yourself enough to try and create a better world for yourself.
So I do admit, it is scary to live in a world where you could lose everything and hit rock bottom, and there can be a comfort to many to just being at rock bottom, because it's like, it can't get any worse, can it? So Eugenia Cooney starving herself, in a way, it's not seeing as losing anything, it's, in a way, a tool for her to gain something, sympathy. I'll leave on this. There's one video where she describes an experience in a pro-ED forum where someone who's anorexic was afraid to shower because her hair would fall out. I'll leave you on that image. Alright, this was very informative. Thank you so much. Take care.